Welcome to the Hiscall Technology Podcast, where we are communicating tomorrow's business needs today. From just outside Nashville, Tennessee, join Hiscall as we discuss all things telephony, data, and infrastructure related to business leaders. Here we go.
Hello again, this is Chuck. We opened episode 42 of the podcast highlighting some startups that became billion-dollar companies. One of those companies was Mike and Terry's Lawnmowers that evolved from distributing electric lawnmowers to manufacturing circuit boards for touch-tone receivers, and eventually became a global leader in business communications with cloud, enterprise, and next-gen collaboration applications. Let me start episode 43 with another startup story that is today a multi-billion-dollar company. Over 100 years ago, in 1911, a young, ambitious entrepreneur named Joseph Eaton invested in a new idea for transportation, the first gear-driven truck axle. The axle company was founded in Bloomfield, New Jersey, but moved to Cleveland, Ohio in 1915. Throughout its 100-year history, the company grew through continued innovation and diversification through acquisitions and mergers. The company expanded their expertise and product portfolio. Today, Eaton Corporation is a global leader providing intelligent power management solutions with nearly $20 billion in annual revenue. Eaton helps customers solve power management challenges through industry-leading electrical, aerospace, hydraulic, and yes, even steel vehicle products and services. On this episode of the podcast, I'm joined by a couple of Hiscall's partners from Eaton to talk about uninterruptible power supply, or UPSs. Eaton is a leading provider of backup power UPSs. We cover solutions for 9 common power problems. You will hear some of the worst enemies to UPS batteries, and we also get pretty technical about the differences in kVA and watts. So get out your pencil and paper. You may want to take some notes on this one. On with me is Bernie and Shelley from Eaton, and I'll allow them to introduce themselves. And so we'll start ladies first. Shelley, tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do at Eaton, and how long you've been there, and anything else you want to say about yourself.
Well, thank you, Chuck, for the warm welcome. It's always a pleasure to speak with you. I am Shelley Kincaid. I have been here with Eaton for about 5.5 years. I am a inside channel sales manager, or ISR, some of you guys may know. I am in the digital power and distributed infrastructure segment. I support our power partners and resellers such as yourself and Hiscall. I also am supported in the field by Bernie, and I'm excited to be here to talk a little bit about, Eaton and power.
Well, thank you so much for joining, and yes, you do give good support to Hiscall, you and Bernie both. So, Bernie, tell us about yourself, what you do, and that kind of thing.
Fantastic. Thanks for having me. Name's Bernie Rumpf. I am with Eaton now for going on 14 years, I believe. It's a fantastic organization. My role is a partner development manager. Basically, I'm engaged by our partners, go out on their behalf, meet with the end user, do discovery in the data center, load analysis, help put that quote together. I can paint a 3 or a 5 year picture. I've been in the IT channel now for close to 30 years. I certainly enjoy working with Hiscall.
Well, we appreciate your support, and you've been to the Hiscall Technology Showcase a couple of times at least, haven't you?
I absolutely have. The partner roundtable, it's an interesting one where we get about 5 minutes to put as much information as we can out on the table, and by the time you get done, you've lost your voice. But,
right. Yeah, we called that speed selling, and for those that have not been to the showcase and have experienced that, all of our vendors come into a room and are there together, and you get 5 minutes with each person you blow the whistle and you get 5 minutes to say what you got to say, let them ask questions about what they want to ask questions about. And It's a lot of information all at one time, and I understand it can wear your voice out.
Absolutely.
Bernie, last time I think it may be the last time I spoke with you, there was some bad weather coming in. You were hoping you would get to make it to a car show that weekend. Did you get to make it to the car show?
I did. I bundled up. It was just a little cold. That's all. Yeah, these days in spring in Charlotte are rather interesting. It starts out at 30 degrees and ends up in 60 or 70. So
Right.
you never really know what's going to happen.
You know what they say about the weather in Nashville. If you don't like it, stick around a minute. It'll change. So Eaton is a large company. I mean, it is a big company and with a lot of different products. Do you guys specifically deal only with the power products?
Well, me and Bernie do support our power management solutions. We do have, as you know, electrical, we have vehicle and manufacturing and aerospace. And while those are, they do operate on their own separate islands, but it is a mindset called One Eaton. If we need a network or bring in other resources, we can definitely do that to help support the business. As you mentioned, yeah, we're a pretty large company. We're about 85,000 employees. We do business in about 175 countries, and we are a little over 100 years old. So we've been, we've been really in it to win it, and just driving the future of power management solutions and critical infrastructure technology into every aspect today. But for me and Bernie, we do support that, the power business, single phase, three phase up to about, 350 kVA. And then that goes over to our electrical division. So we do smooth handoffs and bring them in when needed to also assist in larger projects.
In regards to power, I know when I go around, I see the Eaton on a lot of different power products. Today, we kind of want to focus in on the backup solutions, data center type solutions. So can we talk a little bit about why our listeners, who would be IT folks, would need to consider backup power, conditioned power, those kind of things? Why would they need to consider an Eaton UPS?
Yeah, UPS is uptime is the name of the game. I've been doing this now for, again, 30 years. When I first started, I remember if there was a power fluctuation, things would go down pretty hard, pretty fast. UPSs did come out on the scene. The single phase is the smaller side. Being able to keep that server up initially was a quick sprint to the data center and managed to shut things down as fast as you could.
Mm-hmm.
These days, with the software that's tied into everything and virtualization and uptime really is the name of the game. Companies just can't go down. Shelley was alluding to the three-phase business that we handle. Eaton does. We are number one in the three-phase arena globally, keeping up some of the largest firms in the country, tier 4 data centers and alike. But down to your smaller mom and pop type companies, again, that uptime is key. No one can really go down. Web presence, e-commerce, you can't go down, and if you do, you're losing a lot of money. So what differentiates an Eaton UPS from the rest of the pack? My competitors are all basically throwing a trickle charge out to those batteries, and that actually causes some dilemmas. Number one being heat. So as those batteries heat up, they typically will end up swelling. Anybody that's had any interaction with UPSs in a data center has probably experienced battery swell, trying to replace them and not even being able to get them to come out of the case. I've had some partners actually try to cut them out with a grinder. Not exactly the safest route, but sometimes you get yourself in a pickle. The way in which we charge the batteries is fundamentally different. We patented a technology called advanced battery management, and what that's really doing, if you take a lot of the marketing talk off the top of it, is it's basically monitoring the temperature of the batteries. And I mean, there are algorithms that take place, but as the batteries heat up, we basically back off and allow them to cool down again. Once the batteries have cooled down, we start charging again. And that extends the life of the battery tremendously. extending the life upwards of 5 years plus. Our 3 and 5 series products do come with a 3-year warranty that includes the battery. That carries a lot of weight in various verticals that I deal with. I guess specifically the school districts and so forth. A lot of times they'll go out and put out a bid for new UPSs in the data center and in their closets throughout the school district. If something goes wrong, they're kind of on the hook for trying to even getting a replacement can be difficult. Budgets as tight as they are in some areas. So we really handle everything for that first 3 years with respect to the UPS, including the battery. So if anything goes wrong, you can get a new unit out to them. You can extend those warranties if you want it, take it out to 5 years or even further. These are things we can do because we really stand behind the product set.
Well, thank you for that, Bernie. You said a couple of things in there. I wondered if we could define a little bit. Someone listening may not understand. For example, what is a Tier 4 data center?
Well, it's basically redundancy within the data center. And again, that uptime is key. So, if you have a data center that absolutely cannot go down, they break them out into various levels. So if you want to have redundancy in your generators, multiple feeds coming in from different utilities coming into the building, you can increase that redundancy and safety net to make sure you stay up with respect to power.
Okay. Tier 4 would be a large data center with redundancy, and you guys can address the power needs in a Tier 4 data center, but also down to small, medium enterprise.
Yep, correct.
One of the differentiators you mentioned is your competitors do this trickle charge, and that is just providing a continuous charge on the batteries. And you mentioned that often causes the batteries to heat up. I've encountered those batteries that have swelled. You can hardly get them out to change them,
Absolutely. If you looked at your cell phone as an example, some of the newer ones actually have charging protection in there, but the older ones, you plug it in and come back to it after 24 hours or 48 hours and pick up your phone and feel that charger, and it's going to feel like the surface of the sun. It's awfully
yeah.
And it's certainly not a good thing. I mean, cold doesn't do a battery any good either, but heat, I think, is the number one enemy for sure.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And so the advanced battery management, you're charging and when detecting the temperature, and then you're stopping the charge to let the batteries cool down and then start charging again.
Absolutely. Well, it's a little more complex than that, but I think it paints a pretty clear picture. I mean, there are algorithms, again, that take place, but if you take that off the top and you really kind of look at what's going on behind the scenes, that's what really is taking place. I mean, it's basically monitoring the temperature of the batteries and extending the life of the battery by completely cutting off charging and allowing them to cool down before they start charging again.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I know when we're talking about Eaton UPSs, there are different UPS types. Can we speak to that? And does the advanced battery management apply to each of the different types of UPSs that Eaton offers?
It absolutely does. When you look at our models, we have a 3, a 5, and a 9 series. Those names actually correlate back to 9 common issues that plague everyone with respect to power, from power failures, sags, surges, under voltage, over voltage, and that list goes on. When you look at our models, our 3 series, which is a basic UPS standard, that's going to handle your 3 most common power problems. Our 5 series, which is a line interactive UPS, is going to handle the 5 most common. So I believe that'll also handle the under voltage and some line noise, giving a true sine wave going into that UPS. Now there's some transfer time for a line interactive. We can discuss that in a bit, but the transfer time is in milliseconds. So your most sensitive gear really isn't going to notice if there's been an interruption. From there, our 9 series product is a true online double conversion UPS. What that really means is there's a rectifier inside. So that's as clean as you can get. So it takes the power from AC to DC to AC again. So your device never sees wall power, never sees the receptacle on the wall. Again, it's as clean as you can get. You're going to pay a little bit more for that. A lot of banks and so forth will basically have it in their guidelines that's what they need to have, and that's what we offer. So again, it's as clean as you can get.
Yeah, I understand that. You just talked about something that I did not know. I knew the models, I knew the 3, the 5, and the 9, but I did not know where those numbers came from and that it related to the common power problems. Do you think we could talk about those common power problems like the 3 series? What are the 3 most common power problems?
Yeah, I have no problem with that. We have a power failure, and we have a power sag, and what we call a power surge, right?
Mhm.
And, Barney, you're more than welcome to. So it's what we call classes of good, better, and best. It's what we want to do. It's the levels of performance that we want to enable the best, product for these issues. We technically have 9 power problems, right? But we really want to look at primarily the first 3. And honestly, this is essential. The first level is our 3 series. If you've been familiar with our Eaton product, you probably see part numbers that begin with a 3. That's an easy way to identify that this is pretty much the most cost-effective protection necessary in order to prevent damage, such as, Bernie was talking about data loss or file corruption and hardware damage. What these UPSs do, they offer a degree of protection against the, remaining 6 power problems as we work up into the 5 series or the 9 series and the, online and inline. It really is important to make sure that we're sizing and picking the right UPS for the challenges that you're receiving.
Okay. We can pretty well understand a power failure, right? That's when the lights go out. What about a power sag and a power surge that you mentioned? We might have listeners that say, you know what, I don't really know what is a power sag. I maybe can understand what a power surge is, but maybe not.
A sag is basically it's triggered by startup of a large load, some type of utility switching, possibly. Lightning and power services can also contribute to that as well. Yeah, so I mean, you're gonna have a dip basically.
Absolutely. And we do see that sometimes, especially in, say, the on factories where they may have, say, large industrial printers for reasons, or even hospital machines they want the size of UPS for. It makes it very complicated sometimes because when you have that kind of power, especially that draw when it first starts up, that's what we call the 5th, power problem, over voltage, right? So when it starts up, like he's saying, that initial punch to the gut, so to speak, can cause
Mm-hmm.
some damage if you're not careful. And so that inline rush, as we like to call it, can really be a rush you don't want to experience. So making sure that, you have the proper protection in place, is to take that into consideration and not just the total load, say, of a UPS is also important.
That's really good, Shelley, and I promise you, I don't want somebody punching me in the gut. It definitely would cause damage.
It'll bite. It will bite. You want to keep it. You want to keep it smooth. You want to keep it easy. I always say, a lot of times people don't think about power until they need us.
Mm-hmm.
We have companies, build us into your disaster recovery plans. Bring us in early. Help us work with the electricians. Have these conversations with us. We understand that, IT guys, we get it. It's power. You're not always, the power experts, but hey, Hiscall, Eaton, we are. So it's really important to bring us in and then have that part of your plan so you're covered on all aspects.
Mm-hmm. Often a customer will say, I don't want to spend that much money on a UPS. And I have to go into why I'm proposing what I'm proposing. In what I do, in designing our communications networks, I seldom propose the 3 series. I'm most often proposing, in the 5s and in the 9 series, depending on what I'm proposing to handle the networking equipment, the voice equipment, and that kind of thing. I just stick with the 5 and the 9 series. And sometimes I get some pushback because they're used to seeing UPSs at some chain store or something like that, and they think they can go buy that.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And that's where having these conversations and knowing exactly, what you're looking to get out of your, your backup power and what you're looking to do. Because honestly, you want to take a look at, features. Do you need redundancy? Do you need, how much runtime do you need? There's a lot of factors, even temperature, how long do you want this sitting? Is there other factors in play, like circuits and, all of that stuff, hardwired, what are we looking at, single phase, three phase, having all of this conversation. And really what we see in the field is a general online UPS. It has a lot to offer. CR9 series. We have them from lower KVAs to higher KVAs, and it is depending on how much you honestly need, and having that wish list is always good. So we always want the biggest and the best, right? But when it comes down to honestly getting down and budgeting, I don't want to sell you a UPS that's going to be too big or may not work for you. If you want to grow into one, let's have that conversation, and making sure that your budget is spent to maximize your ROI for the investments that you need. Apply the proper protection for the systems that our UPSs will be supporting, and making sure that you have everything in place, not just the UPS, but PDUs, we have network management cards, we have monitoring probes, we have software to help to manage that, as well. And we want to make sure that we're having that full discussion to provide the best protection possible. And then we can build custom solutions based on budget, your needs, what, your customers want, and offer other options, as well. And that's really important to know that not everybody is equal when it comes to power. So it's not one size fits all.
Exactly right. Well, you said a lot right there, Shelley. A lot of really important things to consider. The additional features. We've kind of been talking about power backup, but there's so much more to it, and the software is really important. We just had that one of our bank customers deployed software to monitor their UPSs, and they're moving from a competitor UPS to standardizing on Eaton UPSs across the board at all their branches, and the software's really been a big deal for them.
Yeah, the software piece is, I would say, probably the second biggest thing. Charging technology for me would be number one. The software piece that we have has an awful lot of polish, to be able to shut down gracefully and to email you and let you know that there's been a power disruption, as well as email you and let you know you can go back to bed because it restored itself and everything's back to normal. So you don't have to go rush in and go see what's going on. So that makes a big difference too. I've been that guy at 3:00 in the morning racing out to try to fix something. Yeah, so the software piece is fantastic. In a virtualized environment, we really shine. We can shut that all down clean. We can bring that back up. We can do, it's called load shedding, so we can shut your non-critical VMs down, keep your critical ones up, extending runtime. If you happen to be replicating to a remote location, we can initiate the replication and reverse the whole process once power is restored, which is something that'll really opens people's eyes. They are working in that data center environment and they're responsible for the virtualized environment, to know that you can shut that down clean and bring it back up. That carries a lot of weight. In your drive arrays, we can shut those down clean, bring those back up, which is also huge.
And that can automatically be done based on certain criteria within the software, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So within the software, you can set up scripts. You mentioned a banking customer. I've had one as well that was having issues with people trying to hack into the bank after hours from the parking lot. So, what's the safest Wi-Fi? One that's off. So they wrote up a script and it would go out every night, shut down all the Wi-Fi, bring it back up at 6:00 in the morning or 5:30, and problem fixed. I had another customer, movie theater. When the gentleman came in to turn everything on in the morning, it was fairly complex, and they had a script set up so it would bring up everything in sequence, which is really nice, and as well shut things down clean properly. So that was also fantastic.
That is all very good stuff, and I think it was Shelley that mentioned earlier about including us, meaning Eaton, Hiscall, in your disaster recovery planning, and that's all types of things that should come into play when you're designing for disaster recovery. How do you want systems to work for a period of time? Then after that time, you might shut down some applications that are not considered critical core components, but you're going to keep up these things that you really need to try to keep up, extending the runtime, as Bernie mentioned.
Absolutely.
Is it okay if we kind of started talking about the 9 power problems? We mentioned the first 3, and Shelley talked about number 5 was over voltage, and the other one was under voltage. What I would kind of like to do, let's finish out the 9, just so somebody listening is not thinking, well, they never did tell me what are the 9. So
Shelley began that one, so I'll let her keep going.
And Shelley, I'll tell you what I'll do. I know Eaton has really good reference documentation on this on the website, so I'll put a link in the show notes that will also allow our listeners to go and get additional detail. So, but we talked heavily about number 3, and you talked about over voltage. We just pick up and move on through the 9? Uh-oh.
Oh, she may have dropped off. Let me.
She did.
I can pick that up. So we started out with power failures and sags and surges. So that would be our 3 series UPS, which is basically a battery in a box. So it's going to handle your surges. It has a place in your industry, in your office, whether it be a wind term or something small. Basically a little bit larger than a power strip. Okay.
Welcome back, Shelley.
Thank you.
Bernie's got you back. He picked up. He saw you disappear and he picked up.
I tell you what, I'm learning about this technology, these new stuff, and I learned how to block myself from getting calls. Every time I get a call, y'all sounded like the chipmunks, and I had to restart. I apologize for that, but thank you. It was my way of just getting the expert Bernie on here. Everybody likes to hear Bernie. We know it.
Absolutely. So we mentioned under voltage and over voltage.
Yes.
Line noise is a big one as well. That's when you start getting into your 5 series line interactive UPS. I think I touched base on that a little bit. A line interactive UPS is your second style of UPS. That's going to have some transfer time. It's between 1 and 4 milliseconds. Your most sophisticated gear is not going to notice that there's been a power fluctuation until you get to about 20 milliseconds or so. That transfer time is blistering fast. So a lot of times that 5 series product will suffice. They're sized actually up to a 3K, 3 kVA, so 3000 VA UPS. From there, let's see here, we got frequency variation is one, and then like switching is another. From there, harmonics, I believe, is probably your final one.
You know them by heart, sir.
Well, I've been doing this a while.
That's what I was about to say, Shelley. He's been at this for 30 years.
I know it. He doesn't sound a day over like he's been in it for 10, but he's a good one. Yeah, I know.
Been at it for a bit. So again, that 9 series product is going to handle all 9 power failures that you run into. It's as clean as you can get. They cost a little bit more money, but again, it's going to be as clean a power as you're gonna find.
Yeah.
I was going to say, it's a lot of information, and trying to wrap it all up into one little bow is hard, right? Because if you think of, all the 9 power problems, pretty much you're looking at, the power failure, number 1, the total loss of utility, power sag, those short-term voltage issues. It's like somebody being sleepy after lunch, right? 3 for those, and I just like to go through these. This is how I explain it, because sometimes you don't have power, experts out there. Those surges or spikes, those are short-term voltages that are more than, like Bernie was saying, 110% or so about that normal output. It's like similar to a me being high on caffeine, as Bernie knows me sometimes. And then for those out in California, you may know about brownouts, right? Those peak times. So that's under voltage. Think of brownout conditions where there's reduced line voltage for an extended period of time. It can be seconds to a few minutes, but it's common, especially during the summer. We talked about over voltage, where, we're spiking. We don't want to see any of that. The electrical line noise. It's usually due to like a high power frequency. So you may want to check like your RFI or your EMI. Your electrician can help with this if you need that. We can come on site and do a power assessment. And this is where you can tell us what you're, seeing, and we can kind of get a feel for, how we can help size the UPS and what we're seeing. That comes to number 8, like he was talking about, that switching transient, right? That's that under voltage that happens in a nanosecond. Think of servers. Any loss there, some of the vendors, as we know within Cisco and Dell and EMC, who are our alliance partners, they're very sensitive to the power, and any disturbance in that can really cause issues. And even the harmonic distortion, which is just, as Bernie was talking about, is just that wave, and it's just not very even on the loading. We just want to make sure that we are, addressing all of those, because it's not just power that, our UPSs are supporting, and not all power is created equal. And it's just keeping that in mind, and keeping in mind the life cycle costs are going to be different depending on what and how the UPS is used, like battery life, the dust debris, where it's at, things of that nature. So there's a whole lot that goes into it. And power conditioning for those last few power problems are a good source of helping to clean up the noises you're hearing, or helping with those sags and things of that nature. And that's where you start getting into the true online and double conversion GPS. That will help protect you against all 9.
And as Bernie mentioned, it does that because it's running through the batteries. It's conditioning the power through the batteries all the time, right? So you, on the output side of that UPS, it's cleaned up all of that stuff.
Absolutely. I just had to get, us power girls, we have to make sure that, we say what we need to say.
That's right. And I want you to. That's why I want you on here.
Absolutely. So Bernie knows I love to talk, so I'm going to pass the mic over before everybody's going for caffeine.
Really, really, really good information. I will put a link in the show notes. As we kind of start wrapping up this episode of the podcast, there are a couple of terms that we see when we're talking about UPSs that I think is important for people to understand, and that's the watts versus kVA. What does it mean when a UPS is 1,000 VA but may not support 1,000 watts?
Sure. So if you think about it, watts to kVA, it basically converts watts to what we call kilovolt amps. And that's how I'm able to really size a UPS, right? So when you're looking at them, your hardware is going to say watts. We're asking, what is your load? You're going to give us a number most of the time in watts, right? And we'll talk about redundancy and dual power supplies and all that stuff. Again, not everyone is created equal. So basically what I do is there are power factors involved for us to calculate from watts to kilovolt amps, or that kVA, as our term is what we use. So, and there's power factors that we go between 0 and 1, right? Anybody who's an electrical or who has done any of these calculations before, for us, it's a 0.8 power factor. So honestly, all we do is we make a conversion that's calculated based on watts and a power factor of 0.8 in order for us to get those kilovolt amps or those kVAs. And that is what allows us to be able to size, a UPS. I know it's kind of difficult because watts are a unit of power that equals the voltage multiplied by the current. So 1 kVA is about 1,000 volt amps, meaning that those volts are multiplied by the amps, which equal 1,000 watts. I feel like a math teacher here, right?
Oh, yeah, but teach me now.
Yeah. So the cool thing, the difference between volt amps and the watts is considered in circuit, which has a power factor other than unity due to the inductive or the capacity of the reactance, right? I'm talking to the electricians here. I'm using your words. I was actually told to use some of these big words, so I'm using them. My daddy would be proud. So pretty much take your watts, multiply it by a 0.8 power factor, you get your kVAs. That's how we're able to size it. We have about a 20% buffer in there to make sure that for those inrush spikes and things like that, we have room to play in there because you don't want to do 100%. If something happens and that thing were to go off, you didn't have enough coverage to support it, it's going to just go down. You don't want that. So
Yeah, that's right.
Yep. So I'm going to let Bernie get that in layman's terms, but it's not easy. But long story short, I have a nifty conversion calculator that helps me do all that. But for those who were like me that didn't want to, do it manually, there you go.
Well, that was really good, wasn't it, Bernie?
Absolutely. Couldn't have done it better myself.
Oh.
I guess one of the important things you said there is not all created equal. And so, if you're looking at a 1500 VA UPS or 1.5 kVA UPS, you want to look at the wattage and what wattage does it support.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. That is by far the most important thing, because that's what you're most concerned with. And they're not all created the same. So if you look at my competitor's 1500 VA unit and you look at ours, I believe theirs is probably going to support 750 watts, 760 watts. And ours is almost a true 1-to-1.
Yeah.
So it's, when you're comparing them and you're looking at price and so forth, you got to make sure you're looking apples to apples.
I started to say you get more bang for your buck, but I don't think talking about power, I want to mention bang.
Yes.
Why not? But that's an important distinction to make, for sure. So, from a price point, I can comfortably get off this call today and let you know that Eaton's not going to be beat on price. It's just not going to happen. As Shelley alluded to earlier in the call when we first started out, we've been around for over 100 years. In the three-phase arena, Eaton's number one globally. We're the second largest manufacturer in single-phase UPSs, the largest OEM manufacturer in single-phase UPSs. We just acquired Triplite recently. So there's a lot of different options you have to power your environment. If price is a number one concern, we can certainly work with you. If it's uptime is the name of the game, I can do that as well.
Yep, absolutely. Well, man, really, really good information today. I've been thinking about this episode for some time, and it met my expectation. I knew it was going to be good with lots of good information, and I really appreciate you taking the time to record it with us.
Thanks for inviting us.
Yes, absolutely. This is fun. We'll have to do it again.
All right. Bernie, Shelley, thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day. We'll talk to you on the next opportunity, okay?
All right, Chuck, take care.
All right. Did you capture any notes? I'll tell you what, there was a lot of information on that podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. As you can tell, Bernie and Shelley are experts in their field, and they're passionate about what they do. I enjoy working with them and so thankful to have them join me on this episode of the podcast. I hope you enjoyed it as well. As we wrap up today, as always, remember, don't be afraid, only believe.
Thanks for taking the time to listen to the Hiscall Technology Podcast. Subscribe to this podcast so you can stay up to date with today's business communication trends. To learn more about Hiscall solutions for your business needs or to listen to previous podcasts, visit us at our website, hiscall.com.